listening to Hudd Mclain. Three guys talking comic book things. This show contains spoilers and strong language. Listener discretion is advised. Let's start the show.
I'll save some of it for the conversation, but I'm digging Loki.
It's what's not. I mean, it's right up your wheelhouse. I know your wife's a big Doctor Who fan. So, my son actually kind of gave me some great fatherly feedback in an unexpected way because I had just showed them Brazil maybe last year, and he was like, "Man, it reminds me of Brazil." I was like, "You know what? You're right."
Yeah, somebody said that
to you. Yeah, I didn't really think of it like that, but I'm like, yeah, that's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I have to rewatch Brazil. I haven't seen that in
it's still right.
20 years, maybe. I have not watched it in 20 years.
You've trained him well, Terry.
Yeah, like I said, he just watched it, so.
Welcome to the Hallspace Podcast. It's about connections. I'm your host, Dr. Ritch Hall, and this is a weekly conversation about whatever and however I see to connect things. For people who want to connect, chat, and learn a thing or two about a thing or two. Without further ado, let's start the show.
Welcome to the Hallspace Podcast. I'm your host, Ritch Hall, and I'm here with my good friends, Terry Huddleston.
Hello.
And Jim Mclain.
Hey.
And we're here to talk about the Marvel series Loki, which I am digging a lot. So what are you guys thinking about Loki right now? How do you guys feel about it?
I'll let Jim go.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sold completely on it yet. I'm open-minded.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see where it goes first. I'm of the Captain Janeway school where time travel gives me a headache. And him chasing himself through time it's an interesting premise, but I just want to see how they execute it. If they execute it like they've executed everything else, it'll be great.
Yeah. I'm not thinking that it will be time travel heavy. But then again, you never know with the time travel show. It's already kind of open to, go up its own petard. But
I don't think they're really using it as a framing device,
right?
Much like WandaVision used the TV shows as a framing device.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't them jumping through different TV shows, though.
Yeah,
like I feel like they're using time as a way to have different settings.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But they're really telling, just like Soul, it's really a Pixar movie. A Pixar TV show. That's what WandaVision was. Pixar stories are very heavy on premise and framing, and then they go from the heart of the thing. They were hammering, probably more so than any other Marvel anything, like Loki, you have to arc. You have to have a story arc.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it kind of gives you this front-loaded promise that, okay, this is going somewhere. Like, we're going to call him out in the first episode.
Yeah. We're going to
be somewhere different. Yeah, we're gonna break them down like right away. Just give them a couple of Rocky 3 body shots.
Yeah.
And
okay. Yeah. So first, I feel like we have to give some context on Loki as a character and Loki as the like where he is as far as his current timeline, because this is not the Loki that most people have grown to love over 3 Thor movies and at least 2 Avengers movies, right? Or is it? No, I mean he's at least 1 Thor movie and 1 Avengers movie, but not the guy that meets his end at the end of Endgame. This conversation cannot happen without spoilers, so spoiler warning to all those who might feel as if we're going to ruin at this point 30 different Marvel movies. But Loki, son of Odin, actually son of the ice giant, Laufey. There we go. I was going to forget that name. Is the god of mischief. Marvel has always sort of struggled with their godhood, in that they get to call themselves gods, but not in any way that would, say, offend the Christians. Marvel always treated them like magical aliens.
Yeah, they still do. I mean,
yeah,
that's not any different.
But not like deeply, like they don't get to really embrace, like, you know, I think MCU Asgardians are magnificent, but not omniscient.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
It's more or less, I think that they kind of sidestepped no, I don't think they're doing it for Christian reasons, I guess, is what I'm pushing.
I think Marvel, you know, Marvel / Disney don't like to upset apple carts if they don't have to. So they find a way to say, well, we're allowed to get away with this under this circumstance. And so I feel like
that's like a myth that people have about Disney. Like, they don't want to upset the Chinese. I hear this all the time. They don't want to. But Disney owns a bunch of subsidiary companies. Like, so when they want to put out a hard R movie, I think they own Miramax. They can put out what they want to put out through the channels they want to put out. I don't think they have,
but not on the Disney Marvel ticket. Like, Marvel hasn't had an R-rated movie for a reason.
But they don't have to, is what I'm saying. It's not like they're like having I guess what I'm pushing back, they don't have like a stance where they're like, we won't do it because of our moral beliefs.
No.
They got different avenues to put out the stuff they want to put out. And
I don't think we're disagreeing necessarily. I think Disney, as a money-making machine, knows how to cater to multiple audiences. But the Disney brand, and by proxy the Marvel brand, tends to be pretty clean. Like, they try to run a clean ship overall. And I mean, they have catered to the Chinese. Like, they had a whole different Iron Man 3.
I can push back against that. That's because that shit was racist as fuck. That's like if you had a Sambo character in your movie because of legacy reasons, you better fucking edit that shit out if you plan on shooting that shit in you know, Southern America or some shit like that. Just as an example. It wasn't like they just, because I mean, otherwise they wouldn't even bother with Shang-Chi or any of that stuff. They were just really afraid of what could happen. I think.
Yeah, I don't think fully afraid. I think they toe certain lines for sure.
Disney is not really an American company. It hasn't been for a long time. It's a very global company.
Yeah.
So they're very in touch with what's what. And yeah, the shit that bombs here, you know, Mulan bombs here, that Raya the Dragon bombs here, kills in other places with mega populations. So sometimes. I get what you're saying, but I don't think that they're tiptoeing around that as much as they just know how to tell good stories that appeal to a lot of people.
Yes. And to do so, they water down certain aspects of what could be controversial. Even remotely controversial. I mean, come on. They're not hard edge, right? They
leave in the Joss Whedon because I could have babies, I'm a monster, but they watch. I don't buy it, Rich. I'm sorry. Like they're not watering down anything.
I'm gonna disagree with you. We're gonna have to disagree on this. I mean, if nothing else, we could say that Zack Snyder made some hard decisions on the DC side of things that people have a hard opinion about because they were relatively sharper edge decisions.
Like, no, do Christians have a hard, like, because I feel like the Christian church actually loved the first Superman movie because it catered to them specifically. It was the opposite of what you're saying. Like it like said, hey, he's just like Jesus. I don't know if you remember that, but like a lot of churches were promoting that movie because of the Christian messaging in it. So
I was only like 1 year. When did that come out? 79?
No. I'm talking about Man of Steel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Man of Steel with the Jesus imagery and all that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean,
even though he's Moses, not Jesus.
I know, we both agree on that, but they...
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I didn't mean to go this deep into that side of things.
I did.
On this, we can disagree.
I did.
I know.
Purpose.
I know.
I was getting ready to pop some popcorn to watch you guys.
It was Terry all along.
Yeah. Right. So Loki has been involved in many scams. He's a mischievous scamp. So we were introduced to him in Thor 1 when he made one of his many overtures for the throne of Asgard by allowing the ice giants into the castle to kill his father. His father ended up in the Odin sleep. And we thought he died. He fell off the Rainbow Bridge and into oblivion, as far as we knew. only to reappear in the Avengers as a emissary of Thanos, whom we didn't know necessarily at the time, but found out by the end of the movie. Okay, he's working for Thanos. He's got the Mind Stone on him. He's got his staff, which has the Mind Stone in it. Tesseract was the Power Stone.
Space
Stone, right. Can travel through space. The Space Stone, which we hadn't seen since Captain America 1. So that was Marvel weaving their stories together. And then Loki loses the battle. And in normal MCU continuity, he is then transported to Asgard to await his time in Thor 2, Thor the Dark World. But this show deviates from what we know to be the Marvel timeline, to where because of the events of Avengers Endgame, he gets a hold of the Tesseract while being transported, and then is able to transport out into this new show universe, and essentially creates an alternate reality. And he is referred to frequently as a variant, which I find absolutely hilarious, particularly since we've been saying the word variants a lot because of the pandemic, and the variants of COVID have been part of the national conversation. So man, Marvel just sort of struck a chord in the zeitgeist by having this character run around and being called a variant.
There you have it.
Yeah.
People already understand it. Yeah, I mean, obviously, look, they're going off of a lot of, I said this every time they come out with something new and people are surprised it's good. Marvel's really good at putting a Disney skin, just much like Fortnite, over different genres. Like they're experts at it. And so to take Quantum Leap and Doctor Who, like it's already, I mean, you can already see what works. Like, okay, this kind of works when they do that. We can take the best of pop culture and basically put a Disney character in that slot.
Yeah. And this is not Quantum Leap. I want to go on record and say, although there is a time travel framing device, this is not Quantum Leap. Because Quantum Leap, no. As an avid leaper who feels very strongly about the adventures of Samuel Beckett, this is not that show.
It's got elements.
It's using certain, iconography, like the doors that open are definitely Quantum Leap.
Like the fucking guy that's with the guy that's, it's using a lot. It's using just more than
he's an Al Calavici, Morbius and Mobius might be an Al Calavici type figure, but it's a different conceit. Samuel Beckett is a
why are you on this hill?
I feel very strongly about Quantum Leap.
You're the only one left.
It doesn't matter. I will.
There's Trekkies. There's Trekkies. There's Star Wars people. Then there's you, alone in your
the lone leaper.
The lone leaper. I didn't even know y'all had a name.
I feel very strongly about it. But I will say a fundamental difference is Quantum Leap. In Quantum Leap, he travels in people's bodies. He tries to right wrong what once went right, turn right what once went wrong.
Wait, so as you say it, you're like shit.
No.
As you say it, just say it out loud.
No.
He travels in people's bodies, tries to right wrongs.
No, Loki's not traveling in people's bodies. He gets to fully be Loki, fully realized Loki.
But who's he chasing, Rich?
Himself.
Okay,
who was his enemy all along? That's another, like the writer was like, and in the end, he's chasing himself. And come on.
That's some adaptation of that movie.
Right?
Like the killer, but it is something to be said about that trope though.
Yeah, I'm not quite clear on how all that's working. It's like they have the little reset devices and stuff like that. So in their timeline, where is Loki then? He vanished. He obviously then, landed in the Mongolian desert, and they took him to the time variance. Okay, so what happened to Loki in this timeline?
Okay, so time works differently in the Time Variance Authority. And so I'm assuming that it's null time, right? It is zero time. And by being essentially in zero time, which is a universe adjacent to the regular universe, they have access to the whole of time laid out before them, like a cloth, essentially. And so right now, Loki is essentially out of time. It's because they can move from time to time without even moving a second. They can return him to a different space, or they can essentially erase him from the timeline. I've been curious about that too, because they erased that one guy who was in the Goldman Sachs kid.
That's what I'm saying.
It's like, well, what's the consequence of that? Like, are there no consequences if you just decide to erase somebody? Or they say reset. What does that mean? Does that mean drop a version of you right before you died and then, put you back into the timeline? Or does that
because he sat there on a little TV and watched the rest of his life unfold? It's like, well, how did that happen if he's pulled out of the timeline?
Because he's out of the timeline. And so, and that goes back to what they said in Avengers Endgame, right? That your past cannot become your future. It's still the past, right? So they're operating under the multi-branch theory of time travel, which this is hard to do without, pulling out some graphs and charts. But like he formed a new branch. They can go back and prune that branch at any time, but the timeline always moved a certain way. He's just a piece of a branch that went off in a different direction. That's quantum mechanics, which they've avoided saying in this episode, which is weird because that's essentially the theory of quantum entanglement, that they all going off in different branches. They're quantum realities. But I guess they're going to save that for Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantum Mania.
Terry, you're muted.
Terry, you muted yourself.
Oh, they've said branching and branches quite a bit. Like that's like,
but not quantum. They've never said quantum reality.
Oh, well, maybe they're saving that buzzword for Ant-Man, like you said.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
But they have a way of monitoring with a little graph how far the branch goes until it red lines or whatever, and it's like
right until it can't be reversed. Essentially, is the way I see it. Yeah. I wonder if they'll get more into the mechanics.
It's Chekhov's plot device, right? Like that's gonna happen. Right. Every minute I'm in this world, I'm more excited about how somebody like Kang the Conqueror is gonna fuck it up. I think it's gonna be. I think Marvel's doing a good job of setting up a bunch of different stuff. So
they're setting some rules that'll be interesting to break later.
Exactly. It's like, these are getting fucked up. Like these rules are getting
right. Well, also kind of whiteouting some of their previous breaks because they almost immediately ditched the event. What the Avengers did was supposed to happen. Like when you create an entity called the Time Variance Authority that's supposed to stop intrusions on the timeline, then you're like, okay, we just literally watched a movie where they were allowed to run willy-nilly throughout the timeline. It's like, well, they were supposed to. They've got the right of privilege to access the timeline however they'd like. And it's like, oh, okay, then we just overlook it.
It seems kind of arbitrary, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think
it's very manifest destiny.
They're using a plot weakness as a strength. Much like, once again, I said this before about Kylo Ren. We were never going to accept him as Vader, and they use that weakness as a strength. In this one, the Time Variance Authority, it makes sense on one level. At the same time, it doesn't make sense once you think about it a little bit. Yeah. And they're acknowledging that. Like Loki is our mouthpiece, going like, wait a minute, who made the rules? Like who's watching the Watchmen, pretty much? Yeah. Like, I don't know. Yeah. This is
the judge was up there even going, this is a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably going to end up that him pulling Loki out of the thing is what causes him to go evil and go kill people in the first place.
I wonder about that. I wonder if it'll be predetermination.
It's going to be the female Loki.
It's a full-on variant. But I think we meet whoever it is next episode, is what I've heard. I will say the TVA...
The DB Cooper scene. It's like,
I felt like that was just...
random?
It felt random, yes, but it was just...
It felt random, but it might have a payoff later. Like,
you think?
Yeah, it felt random, but it's like, why is it in there? Because they're gonna do something else like that. Like, oh, you thought that the fucking Bermuda Triangle was this, but it was actually the Time Variance Authority. It was correct. You know what I mean? I feel like they put that in there just so you go, what's up with that? Yeah. And they can either do something with it or not. But
because everything that's ever used time travel before, you have to encounter Amelia Earhart. You have to encounter DB Cooper.
You got to be the white kid that invents rock and roll.
Right.
From the blacks. But So right. It's the Back to the Future thing.
I will say the Time Variance Authority. I was reading someone called them time Nazis, and now I can't see them any differently because they are strictly bureaucratic and strongly authoritarian.
That's a Nazi. That's like a German myth, though. That's almost like if there is such a thing, that's almost like German racism. Is to automatically assume if you're an efficient, bureaucratic culture, then Nazis, Germans, right? It's kind of like the thing they get hit with, right?
Yeah.
Nobody ever hits black people with being efficient, right? Like it's almost like an inverted racism. Like, how come?
Yeah.
We think of the Aryan race, white people as because the Chinese are very bureaucratic, actually.
Yeah.
Like a lot of cultures are very bureaucratic. Actually,
we're presented them though, as though they're not fascist, but who's to say they're not a little fascist? They might be fascist.
The Time Authority? No, they're definitely presented. They even have one of them doing damn near a Zig Heil in one of the posters in the background. She's doing like a high five thing.
Well, and then you have Infinity Stones. You have actual Infinity Stones. Like, they really don't work here. What?
Well, okay. Once again,
I love that.
I like that too. Once again, we're talking multiple.
Don't love that.
Multiple universes. There are certain laws, essentially, that universes move according to their own harmony. And once you move to a multiverse model, just moving to the left means that certain powerful objects don't hold the same power. And they particularly wouldn't in null space. Once again, to go back to that assumption.
Time Stone probably should.
Maybe, but it's null space. So it's a different frequency than the main universe. That often happens.
The time
physics and magic are different. Time.
All time, doesn't it?
No, they're outside of time.
They're outside of time, and they're in a particular pocket universe, which means the physics are different.
So the Space Stone should work.
They're kind of in that area that, even though I hated Interstellar, like they're kind of in that, whatever the hell that was. Even though the place they are kind of looks like that, like an MC Escher, outside of time, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's the problem with time. You can't really visualize it because you need time. We still need to perceive things in time. So it's a paradox we're never going to be able to.
Yeah,
it felt like Luke Skywalker tossing the MacGuffin over his shoulder. Say, we just had a whole 20 movie series about these stones and how awesome and powerful they are.
Right.
Oh, some of the guys use them as paperweights.
I actually agree with you. I agree with you on that was exactly what they were doing. Yeah. But I loved it both times. I'm a Rain Johnson defender. Like you haters out there got your cookie cutter movie with that last one, and you see what happens. You don't take your story in a new direction. Yeah, that's not as predictable as the Skywalker legacy. Like
different show.
I would have loved. I'm glad they just showed us right up front. This isn't a chase for the Dragon Balls. Yeah, and we're not doing that this time.
This doesn't matter.
This time, I feel like it's going to be a lot more complicated.
They're essentially saying those are off the table. I mean, if you took any one of those back into a universe, they would then become this all-powerful object. But in null space, they're essentially this thing that got picked up. What I liked about that is that there were so many of them. Like the idea that if you come across a Infinity Stone, there's a good chance you're going to break reality and branch off into another reality.
There's a stone for that too.
Yeah, but still, the idea that you're going to probably accidentally break reality, get yourself picked up by the Time Variance Authority, who's going to use time against you to fight you, pluck that Infinity Stone from you and just be like, okay, so we reset everything. We don't even need to go back and re-add that to the time stream. Some people have pointed out that when the Ancient One had that conversation with Bruce Banner, she essentially said you cannot pull these from the Time Stone because you end up creating variant branches of time. But I do think that's the one question for me. It's like, do they reset and create the variants then become these sort of cast-offs because they reset a particular point in time? We still haven't learned what the charges do. And I feel like once we learn that, it will answer a question.
They purposely cut away every time.
Right.
We were about to see exactly what it does.
Right. And so I feel like once I learn that, it will answer the mystery for me in my head of, oh, okay, that's how they reset the timeline. And it's probably just the moment before they arrest you, a version of you gets sort of like rewound in the tape, essentially, and then they cut it off.
Well, it seems more nefarious than they want us to believe right at this moment. Like, oh, wait a minute, because it seemed like, they're about to get obliterated or something. They've already shown us what the stabs do. And so it's like, are these people going to get turned into particle dust because this whole timeline is getting wiped out? Yeah.
And so, once we learn that, I'll have a better view of what those mean.
Yeah. So let's answer your time Nazis thing. Like, I definitely think that's what they're going for. Like, that's I don't think that's a hot take to say all black uniforms with the.
I didn't think hot take so much as I was like, I hadn't looked at it that way. You're right. Who's to say that they're not kind of fascist? Oh no. No. Does that mean they're part of the problem?
Well, their helmets sure were now.
Well, I mean, they're inclusive fascists. Which I've always said a good fascistic movement would be inclusive. It's one of those, I think we get so stuck on how the Nazis did it, but I feel like the new form is going to involve a lot of forms. Like race isn't going to be the dividing line.
Yeah.
In this new fascism, it's gonna be money. It's gonna be who has money, who doesn't. And so
yeah. I mean, if you let the conservatives tell it, the liberals are the fascists, and they're just trying to fight off the evil.
Well, that's everybody gets that story, right? That's
right.
That's our birthright as Americans to be the good guy of our own story.
Right. On either side, as if nobody's
unqualified. Either the left or the right. Like I was just telling my wife, and this is a tangent, but we'll get back on the main thing. I can't stand Bill Maher. Like I can't stand the guy.
Yeah.
Can't either.
I don't think just because he's on the air quotes left, which would be my side of the fence. You've
made this point before.
And that's kind of where I'm at with this show. Whereas I'm not sold on the time period, but I don't think they're trying to sell it to us like they're good guys. They're obviously very. It's kind of like a mixture of fascism and old school religious power, if you ask me. Kind of medieval religious power. With the religious symbols everywhere combines. So it's kind of an interesting combination of government bureaucracy and religious bureaucracy together. Mm-hmm. Like this is the sacred timeline. Like what the fuck? You know what I mean? That's not a very scientific word. Like it's almost like it denotes that this is the timeline we believe is the best timeline.
Right. And who gets to decide that?
Because we kind of want it to be.
I did find it interesting that Loki was like, let's talk about this god to god. Like he assumed like, well, there's a hierarchy. Someone's at the top.
He was definitely trying to use his god white privilege.
Right.
Like, it was like entertaining. Like, hey, wait a minute. I'm a white man. I'm a god. Like I can clearly no, they're not. They're beyond that. Like they don't.
Yeah.
They don't really care about all that. So, but Marvel has been very loosey-goosey with how its magic / powers work. Yeah, and that's no problem. I mean, not everything has to have a hard magic system. I prefer a hard magic system, but with this many fucking characters, with this variety of powers, it'd be impossible to make a unifying system that everybody is working on. And I feel like the closest they've gotten is saying that whatever fuels the Infinity Stones pretty much fuels everybody else. This is something I wanted to say to Jim about the Infinity Stones. Is what Marvel is smartly doing now that we know the character. They're making individual characters into the Infinity Stones. Like Wanda's going to be a stone. Doctor Strange is going to be a stone. They're not going to call them that, but you can tell like, okay, these people are the avatars of this all-powerful power.
Well, the Nexus, they've called in the comics, and I've heard this over and over again, Scarlet Witch is a Nexus being.
Yes.
So in that regard, she gets to be maybe a much more powerful version than we are even kind of accustomed to in the.
Well, that's anime 101. Always got to level up your character and.
Right. So in many ways, I'm very curious about the Multiverse of Madness, particularly with Sam Raimi at the helm and what it'll turn into with so far what they've been building. Like I don't know what'll make sense until we see the big to do. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I'm curious about that.
I guess I'm less pessimistic though. Like I'm not gonna lie. I'm like Marvel hasn't given me pause to go, well, I don't know if they're gonna pull this one off. Like, like they seem to be.
It's more curiosity.
They're paying off a lot of. I feel like we're in the reward season now for all the good, the bad, and ugly that we put up with. Now we're just getting straight rewarded for our investment in this 10 years enterprise. It is kind of novel. I can't really think of a movie franchise. Star Wars should have been this, but it wasn't. And I feel like the only payout people got after 20-something years of Star Wars fandom is The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian feels like it picked up that fumbled ball, whether we agree or disagree, and ran with it.
Yet I saw people online actually saying, "Oh, the whole Mandalorian Luke Skywalker thing ruined the franchise for me." I'm like, "What?"
No, that was a cool payoff. I like that.
I was just like, "That's what ruined it for you?"
Yes, it's the internet.
Your mileage may vary, I guess.
Yeah. Circling back to Loki, time variant number L1130. I also was completely amused through my first viewing. Loki was pretty much always destined to break the timeline, I think. As a character who's constantly looking for an out and constantly searching for objects of power, it seems like it was like the story makes it feel very evident that if this didn't happen now, it would have happened multiple times if it hasn't already happened multiple times. So the idea that he just sort of sees an angle, takes it, and doesn't think about where he's going to land because he's just being mischievous. I was immediately struck by, yep, this character would end up in this circumstance. Also, that this was definitely a callback to Thor Ragnarok, where you take this character and put him in this mundane bureaucratic situation where he's processed just like anybody else. And so it's like, what happens when a god meets bureaucracy? And instead of the haircut scene, you have he gets stripped of his clothes scene. And I really liked the temporal aura scene wherein he asks him, are you a robot? And he's like, I'm not sure. So he has to stop for a second. Like, how would I know if I was a robot? And it's like, yeah, just step in there and get melted and find out. As well as there was another one. The everything you've ever said scene. I also liked him getting processed for everything he ever said. Then when he says something else and that joke had to play out in threes, please sign this to say everything you ever said. He says one thing, then he says another, and finally signs it. Because I thought that was also, once again, a deconstruction of Loki. He's this very bombastic figure. When you see him land in the desert, which is definitely a callback to the Iron Man landing in the desert scene from the very first movie, you see him not just stand up to these people, but also jump on a rock so he could be above them. Like, it's because he's Loki, he's got to look for that position of authority and put on this air of, bow before me because I'm important.
Oh, you had to give the burden to glorious purpose speech again.
Right.
He's definitely the ultimate little brother.
Definitely.
For anybody with a little brother, it's like, fuck, they nailed that.
Right.
He's the ultimate little brother.
Petulant. Like, could we just get through with this, what we're supposed to do? Do you have to keep acting out? You do? Okay.
And it's weird that Marvel's sending all their characters through therapy. This go around.
Let's call that at what it is, right?
Yeah, it's like, everybody's getting a therapy session.
Yeah. I don't like to kill people.
Right.
It's just, I have to.
Which I'm pretty sure he's manipulating his therapist in that scene, but...
When did Owen Wilson get old, by the way? When did he get all gray hair?
Oh, it happened. I think that was the wig he was wearing, man. He probably bald or something for all we know, but... I
also have to say, as a writer, I wonder if they wrote these lines for Owen Wilson, because he did some really good
sounded like it.
Reads, right? Or did they go back and rewrite it for Owen Wilson, because he's got some really great...
and let's admit, he's not anybody's choice for anything, right? To do with Superman, I don't got anything against him. I've always liked him because of Wes Anderson movies.
Yeah,
but I was like, you know what? I'm liking this. It takes the TVism out of it.
Yeah, and so the dialogue is crisp.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like TV. Like, hey, this says about it. I get that, but what about? Yeah. So he's got this very hey, so you're Loki, right? And they're both kind of basically Lokiing each other, really. Yeah. He's just got a different. He's somewhere in between Loki and Sam Mustache Cowboy guy. I forgot his name. Sam
Elliott.
Something. Sam Elliott. Yeah, he's kind of. He's somewhere right between those two on the spectrum of cool ability.
Yeah, he's relatively he's mercurial in his own way, which I appreciated, because that's sometimes how I actually am as a therapist. When dealing with a client like a Loki, you're just like, oh, is that what it is? Okay. Sure. But also, do you want to take this seriously? Like, he did a very good job of being like,
he had a command presence about him.
But also, hey, you want to start taking this seriously while I show you some heavy stuff? You got your mom killed, buddy. What are you gonna do with that?
I don't know. Did anybody, Jim, I definitely want to get your opinion on this. Did anybody think he let him steal the time turner thing?
I don't think he let him.
It seemed like he kind of gave him a weird look. If you go back and watch it, like after he did it, like, all right, like, I know you got it. Like, I need you to go through this loop so you can get it for yourself. If I tell you what you need to do, just watch it again. It's like he knew he took it. Not as he took it, but
especially since he went right back to that same room so he could watch the rest of his life story. That had to be deliberate.
Or he knew Loki well enough to know he's going to come back to this room.
Yeah.
Because he realizes he can't get out of here.
Yeah. And so it makes me wonder if they know the future of what's going on in there too.
Yeah.
Which they haven't even touched on that, because that would break the plot. Otherwise, there's no.
Yeah. I will say, we're also very much in the era. TV Marvel is very meta. Both WandaVision and this show had essentially people having to become students of the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
like rather than because they have the time, we could just sit down and recap what's been happening in a way. Ant-Man, I think, was the only movie to ever really do that, where, you're basically telling some of the story of the movie, or the story of what's happened prior to the movie. And Ant-Man didn't really do that so much as he just told stories, and they just happened to be interesting.
But in this C-3PO scene in Return of the Jedi.
Right.
Here, let me summarize everything that happened in the previous two movies. Okay,
right.
Cool.
Right. And so both of these shows have had Owen Wilson is essentially the viewer. He's a student of what's preceded, so he can lay out the Loki's timeline. And we're all like, yeah, I remember that.
It's they kind of made Loki into the Kitty Pryde character, though. Like, he's the one, like, the new stuff is new to him. So I feel like he's the POV character that's like, what? That didn't happen. Yeah. Whereas Owen Wilson already knows. Yeah. So he's like,
where are you holding her? Where do you have her?
You're right.
Yeah.
Right. Which for a character like Loki, you have to sort of take away literally all of his power and all of his angles before he'll stop and say, okay, now I'm listening to you. A thing that Thor was never really patient enough to do. He would always just sort of get frustrated with him and either, punch him or just leave him behind.
Oh, look at you. Are you trying to use your magic?
Yeah. Which had to be the impotence scene. Some of these superhero movies love a good impotence scene.
Hey, Spider-Man 2 had the best one.
Yeah.
Right.
I was like, that boy could not bust a nut right now. And it shows like he is way too frustrated to be slinging web.
Right.
Which actually was a great function of having the biological web shooters that people hated from the first movie. That was actually really a good use of it. It's like,
right.
Can't even shoot webs.
Solid. Even though I, as an old school Spider-Man fan, I had my own issues with it. The spoiler at the end, the variant they're hunting is Loki. Now, my original impression of this movie was going to be Loki himself broke the timeline and now he's got to go around and fix it. This seems like a much more interesting premise, and I am very curious about what is ahead. They hooked me at the end. I'm very curious to see what they'll do. But is Loki on board with this, or is he playing the game? I do feel like he's Loki, so he's going to literally try to slip out of every cage he's put in. But
as he should,
I don't trust
as he should on that level. Like, I think Loki just represents, almost like a teenage rebellion, even though he isn't a teenager. But he's kind of got that. You're dumb. You guys are dumb. Yeah. And this is like the ultimate foil, just a stuffy, bureaucratic, analog. And I'm loving, by the way, the analog setup. I'm a sucker for steampunk, and so this is as close as I'm going to get. But I think the lo-fi-ness of it helps sell it more because they don't got to use a lot of special effects. It grounds it so that, if nothing else, you're not completely put off by this completely spacey situation. It's like, it's like a 1960s. I want to say it actually makes it into a period piece unintentionally. Like, you feel like you're watching Mad Men, but in space.
That little 60s cartoon that introduces the whole idea.
Love it.
Yeah. They know that I did love the Miss Minute scenes where it kind of pretty much lays out the exposition in a way that's interesting, which is a callback to what? Jurassic Park, where the DNA thing told us how the DNA part worked, the DNA sequencer worked.
And
the Rocketeer, where it's like, all the flying Nazis.
It's funny that you didn't bring up your favorite pastime, Fallout.
Yeah, it is definitely Pip-Boy. Yeah. With that, we need to take a commercial break. We'll come back and finish recapping Loki and talk a little bit more about the show that I'm really digging. Thanks for joining us. So let me tell you about Anchor Podcast. It's the podcasting service that I use. Anchor.fm is the easiest way to make a podcast, and there are many different reasons why, but foremost is it's free. So you don't need to go out and buy a whole bunch of equipment. If you have a phone or a computer
and a microphone, you can record and edit your podcast right on your phone or computer. So that's one major benefit, as well as the fact that they'll distribute your podcast to several different podcasting sites for you. Not only can your podcast be found on Anchor, it can also be found on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast as well. So you don't have to worry about going to all those different sites and setting yourself up. They'll do it for you. You can also make some money on your podcast. Say you have a podcast that only 5 people listen to on a regular basis. They don't limit you on how many subscribers you have to have in order to be able to make a little bit of change for your podcast to keep yourself going. So pretty much everything you need to start a podcast can be found at Anchor.fm. So go download the app either in the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, or go to Anchor.fm to get started. And I guarantee you, it'll make things so much easier for you, like it has for me.
Love, relationships, the church, the world as we see it today, and many more thought-provoking conversations. This season of Speak Kaya, She's Come Undone Talk Sessions, coming to your ears soon. Keep watching.
Welcome back to the Hallspace Podcast. I'm here with my good friends, Terry Huddleston.
You forgot this already.
No, I'm trying to do 2 things.
My good friend.
My good friend, variant number L1131.
Exactly, yeah.
Terry Huddleston.
Hey, hello.
And my good friend, variant LL32, Jim Mclain.
What up? Is that cultural appropriation? I don't know.
No, it isn't.
So, quick question at the top of the second half. Would you watch the tape of your life?
Hell no.
Oh, no.
No.
I would be curious. It'd be very hard to do.
I'm one of those bad guys that's like forgetting is a blessing. You don't want to remember.
You both know me well enough to know better than that.
Yeah.
I know.
I would have to know. I'm a forgetful person, so I write a lot of stuff down. I mean, in many ways, this podcast is hey, what happens if you record a moment of time in your life? So the idea of getting to replay certain moments, good and or bad, would be interesting just because of the perspective I bring to my life now. And, it's very humbling to know your place in time. Like in the Loki show, he is shown the preceding movies that essentially lay out where he gets to see the day of his death, which, nobody really wants to see that. But also you're kind of like, how much more time do I have? It raises so many existential questions for a person. I would want to know, do I got months or years? I don't need to know an exact date, but
I think
what would I be doing with my time?
That would impede in your immediate happiness.
It's a Cassandra complex.
I think we automatically assume like, oh, you're gonna die when you're 101. It's like, it's like, okay.
The human creature needs to lie to itself like that, but to be honest, we don't know.
Well, I think we don't know for a reason. I mean, if you even look on average, they can tell you when you're going to die. If you really wanted to know, like, okay, you got this job, you got this diet, you get this type of sleep. Yeah, you're probably going to die somewhere between 65 and 68. Yeah, we don't want to know that shit.
In that case, I should be dead already. So I'm feeling fortunate right now.
There you go. But you get the law of averages. I mean, that's why they're able to run insurance companies, because they know when you're going to die. Like,
nobody knows.
They know. They know. They don't know specifically, but they know. Yeah. It's why they ask you that certain, do you smoke? Yeah. Do you do this? Right. Oh, you eat asbestos. Great. Okay. So.
Yeah. So how many hamburgers do you eat a week? Okay, there we go.
Oh, just like the people with my camping stuff last week were like, you can't eat like that. It's like, I don't eat like this all the time.
Right.
Just as I was camping, I was posting stuff on Facebook. It's like eating bacon and eggs every morning and stuff like that. I drink a protein drink. I mean, give me a break. Right. Like, let me have my camping trip.
Right. Enjoy yourself, man.
Baby, cheat day.
Speaking of quantum leap, that's a quantum leap thing. When Sam leaped into himself as a child and is trying to get his dad to quit smoking and stop eating bacon.
Yeah.
Dad's like, no, I like these things.
Right. He was not going to stop. And I always thought, and now in retrospect, I'm like, man, quit trying to put your values on your dad. He's allowed to do some of that. Because his dad got cancer. And so, it's, once again, Cassandra thing. He's helpless to stop his dad from dying. Knowing the future doesn't save you.
He's freaking his sister out by singing Imagine by John Lennon.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was a cool
thing. Yeah. But also, once again, Sam was destined to always save others and not the people in his own life, which is always, what happens to you.
That was the worst line I ever saw close a TV show. Samuel Beckett never went home.
Oh, it broke my heart. It still breaks my heart. It still breaks my heart. And they've tried multiple times to reboot the show, but it never quite gets off.
I thought it was getting rebooted.
Don't believe it until they say they've stopped filming the Quantum Leap television show or movie. Don't trust it. It's one of those. It's encased in amber, and may never return. More on Loki. Loki watches the tape of his life, and it humbles him enough to realize that he cannot fight this system. He's going to have to play along and just wait for more openings. Do you guys believe he's on board, or do you believe he's just playing a game?
I think he's on the path of being on board.
Mm-hmm. You think?
Yeah, yeah. There you go. No for Jim.
He's the Scorpion. It's in my nature.
Right. I kind of am of the mind that Loki's definitely not a person you could trust, and they've said it in a joke that I know comes from a different episode. It's like, you've literally stabbed people in the back like 50 times. Like his joke with his brother is to transform into something and stab him. You know what I mean? So it's like, he's probably gonna try to stab everybody involved.
That line was ad-libbed, by the way.
Which one? He stabbed me with the...
Yeah.
Yes, I did hear that story, because he had, like, if you watch the DVD or something, or the
Man, how old are you, Rich? DVD, what's that?
I'm sorry, I'm that old. I want to say DVD extras, but it's just the deleted scenes is what they call them.
Betamax, got it.
Right. You mean Betamax?
I am old enough
Laser
to know
disc?
Betamax. Yes, laser discs too. I've seen them all. I've seen some things in my time, man.
Laser discs were pretty magical to me. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna hate on laser discs. It just was so damn big,
right? This massive thing.
And it's just like this massive. And at the time, it was like the best quality you've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
The laser disc is the only reason we have any kind of widescreen Star Wars cut with the original cut.
I watched it on Laserdisc, actually, way back in the day.
Well, the special edition DVD of Star Wars has the Laserdisc version of it on the bonus disc. So you can still watch Han shoot first and only.
There you go.
Still be in widescreen. But
I did not know that.
There you go. We have to talk about Loki threatening to gut that guy like a fish, and the guy doesn't know what a fish is.
What's a fish?
What's a fish? They always do that in shows like this. Umbrella Academy has the Bureau.
Yes.
Where it's like these people who seem to be out of time. That was one major question that I had as I watched this, particularly the second time. Does the TVA in Null Space have day-night cycles? Because he walks in and says, Loki, let's take this up tomorrow. And I'm like, wait, that seems pedestrian. Like, does the sun go down here, or like how does that work?
And if you have a guy who's like, we're basically born here in the office, I'm like, right. Then who cares if the Minutemen are getting killed by other Loki?
Right, because you could just either create more, or
they're automatons or something.
Right, right. They're drones in a way. And so, do they have like lives or children or families or?
Well, I think they're going to use
they have stakes.
Amanda Waller as character to show you what their lives are like.
Nice. So we're gonna get a look into her life.
I like her character, by the way.
Yeah, she's
somebody brought up Night Court, and I was like, you know what? They're not wrong.
Yeah, I could see that.
Her being the bailiff character and just the Night Court aspect of it all.
Is that Marsha Warfield? Is that who that was?
Probably. Don't give me a line.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Big fan of Night Court too. I will go to task for the brilliance of Night Court.
I watched it, but I never thought it was funny. But I was young. Nothing until Seinfeld made me laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
But yeah, I mean, really? Nothing made me laugh. It's stuff entertained me, but Seinfeld was the first show to make me just laugh uncontrollably.
See, I thought Harry Stone was this very quirky, okay, I could get behind that guy because I was quirky and weird and not necessarily into magic, but
I mean, I
Definitely.
watched it. It was
Yeah.
something that was on TV, but it wasn't. It was that in British comedy, actually. It was like the thing that
feel
just
like
got me to
Night Court
laugh.
has an absurdity to it that might still be, amusing.
I might have been too young. Who can
Yeah.
say? But
Yeah.
I was watching anything that was on TV back then.
Yeah, they are rebooting Night Court for, I think, Peacock, I think.
I've yet to watch anything on Peacock.
I mean, you'll live a long way.
It seems like an Audi brand TV channel.
Actually, they have a Saved by the Bell reboot that actually is like
I'm good.
chuckle funny
I'm good.
because it looks at classism as a like the in that way that like they're once again meta looking at the old Saved by the Bell stuff through this lens of meta.
Right.
And so it's like these rich kids get to do whatever they want, and the main character is now a poor girl who's now moved to this rich district. Not moved, they joined the two schools. And so
And
there's
what
an
a-
element there of like, this is, oh, okay, you're really like examining this. Like she genuinely doesn't have enough money to make flyers to run for student body president. Like, oh, okay.
Like, is it funny though?
It's chuckle funny. It's not
Because
like
I feel like this
funny.
is a way to piss off people too. Like,
It actually doesn't. I think it walks the line, particularly if you have any affinity for the old Saved by the Bell.
yeah,
Like they know they can't go full, Saturday morning television
Yeah.
show humor. So that like they do a little bit of that while also knowingly poking at it. Which
Yeah, no, I
I
get
watched
it.
a couple episodes. It was like, oh, I was amused. Am I going to watch the whole thing? I completely forgot about it until we just now had a conversation about Peacock. So it didn't grab me like that.
it's all right.
That's my
Saved by the
assessment.
Bell.
Right.
Yeah, that was another show I watched. I never thought it was funny. I watched it though. Cause
Yeah, it was definitely one of those I watched because kids doing things. You watch it now and you're like, that's why they had that meta,
Full House,
Mike
same
Morris.
thing. I never thought it
Morris
was
is a
funny.
horrible person.
Oh
Full
yeah,
House?
yeah.
Also watched a lot of Full House. TGIF, how could you not? What else were you doing on a Friday night?
What else were you doing?
I was 10 years older than you. I was doing.
Yeah, you were out doing teenage stuff. We
No.
were 10 years old, so
I was doing 20-something stuff.
yeah. Oh,
That's the meat of life right there. 20-something
right.
stuff.
Right. So yes, back to Loki. He has to get humble. He has to say, okay, let's see where this goes, and finds out that he's the variant, and it has a very Loki response. Pardon me. As he's shown throughout this, whenever Loki is thrown for a loop, he stops and asks for more information, which he didn't always get as he was moving through the bureaucracy of the TVA. But he is, like you said before, he is us. He's the audience waiting to see, like, what do you even mean by this? What's happening? What is that? Why?
Right. And
So, yeah. So this
you
show
ever see
definitely
that show Fringe?
Fringe. Oh,
It
yeah.
was on. This definitely has a lot of elements of that too.
Yes, good that you said that because I was going to talk about some of its influences. Definitely very Doctor Who, very Brazil. Now that you've said that, very Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yes.
Even though it's dealing with time and not just space in and of itself. A little bit of Fringe. There's another show that I'm blanking on as we're talking about it. You also
Quantum Leap.
No.
Yeah.
no.
Yes.
Quantum Leap was about
Yes.
slice of life stories that had time travel as a framing device, but in reality, you're looking at a
Every
person's
time you
life.
describe it, it seems like you're describing this show we're watching
Nah,
right
How
now.
about Voyagers instead?
Sliders. How about Sliders? It's
Ooh.
definitely a little Sliders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually not that Doctor. I mean, it is kind of Doctor Who.
Also,
I don't
it was
know.
fuck.
Yeah, I
It's
don't
like
know.
if we were looking at like a regular person. Yeah, I mean, he's pretty much the sidekick with the Doctor. I just thought about it. Like, yeah, it's Doctor Who. Like,
Yeah.
So we already got to see the Loki posing as DB Cooper thing, which I still don't understand. It's like I lost a
can't
bet with
explain it.
Thor. What?
Yeah.
And Thor bet you to go hijack a plane on
Right.
Midgard? What? No.
That doesn't sound like a Thor plan.
No.
yeah, Thor is kind of. Remember, he was kind of a jockey, meathead idiot, though.
Yeah.
But hijacking a plane doesn't sound like quite right.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I wonder if we're going to get like Watchmen handled the Tulsa situation.
Mhm.
I wonder if we're going to get life lessons through time. It's like, oh, here's the thing through time you didn't know about.
Yeah. I wonder that. I will say that it is very it's a very heavy blow as a guy who does therapy stuff for a living, to tell someone that you were born to cause pain and suffering and death. Also that others could achieve their best versions of themselves. Like, that's a heavy hammer to drop on someone after only knowing them for an hour. Like,
yeah,
man, you've I would not have expected that from a Marvel show. I would not have expected someone to be deconstructed in that particular manner.
Because I'd like to see them go back to Columbus and see Columbus cutting the hands off of natives and making decorations. Because I gotta tell you, it's like, you know, when I keep reading, it's like, oh, well, we never got taught this in our history books. And when my daughter was in 4th grade and she was learning about Columbus and she had this book, and I looked at the book and go, let me tell you about Columbus.
There you go.
So I got a side recommendation for anybody listening. Definitely for you, Jim. It's a podcast it's a YouTube podcast, and it's a podcast. So some of it has video to correspond with, some of it doesn't, called The Fall of Civilizations. I recommended this before. And it tells history like in that non-Anglo-Saxon.
Yeah.
I think the guy's like a European kid that's doing it, but it's very even keel. It's not preachy, but it'll be like, and what Columbus did when he got here was start a drug empire built on the blah, blah, blah. You're like, oh shit, that's crazy.
Oh yeah.
But it also deconstructs myths of like the Mayans sacrificed themselves and like, no, they actually climate change fucked up the civilization.
Well, and I keep reading how people are opposing the 1619 project and things like that. Like, I'm like, you know, we really need to own up to some of this stuff, because like Christopher Columbus, that's all. So they're going, well, Columbus should be honored on Columbus Day. It's like, no, he really shouldn't. He was a butcher, and it's, we know this from his own writings.
He wrote it
first
himself.
Hand.
He was proud of it.
He was, he chronicled all of it. He documented all the atrocities.
Right.
I mean, up until recently, you didn't have to be ashamed of being an empire.
No.
And
no, you should be proud of it.
It's weird being a person of color talking about empire building, because, like, you know, people like we heard me talk about this before with Britain. Like, people still think Britain is cool.
Yeah.
Because why wouldn't you? It's like, no, fuck them too. Don't be anti-American, but like go watch Doctor Who. Like we're actually nothing compared to what the British did. Slavery and all.
We're rookie.
Yeah,
we're
like
rookie
nothing.
season.
We're rookie imperialists. We're not even.
It's that old.
We didn't get
commercial.
most of the globe.
They were at it for a millennium before we even.
I learned it from you, Dad. I learned it from
about
you.
watching you. Yeah.
You know, it's that whole thing. And this isn't me saying be pissed off. This is like, if you're gonna be pissed off, like,
pissed off at everybody.
Like, don't think like it's kind of, like I said, an inverse racism to go, America's the worst country in the history of the world.
Yeah,
like,
no.
No.
Not yet. Give us a chance.
Right.
I don't think we're gonna get there. We have a built-in fascistic vaccine that keeps us from going over the top. Now, I'm not saying we can't have our bad moments. This is me being patriotic. I love our country. We have a lot of chaotic forces going on.
Yeah.
But we also have some built-in inoculation going on that can compete with itself. Whereas other countries were monolithic. The British didn't fight amongst themselves, and that little fucking island was able to take over most of the known world because they had clarity of purpose and no infighting. So it's not
manifest destiny.
Solidarity isn't really all it's cracked up to be. I'm kind of glad we don't get along as much as we should, to a degree. Obviously, it's just like radiation. It has to be kept in check.
Right.
We'll die. But, you know, the left fighting the right fighting the alt-right, cool. Because if we get too monolithic, we'll start thinking we're the absolute.
Well, I mean,
and that goes with the time. I'm going to bring it back. Goes with the time, the sacred timeline, right?
Right.
So it's all about absolutes. This is absolutely the right time. Says us.
Says who? You're right. Right. You're right. I saw an interesting TikTok where a girl said that your ancestors would be mad at you for denying that white privilege exists, because they definitely believed that they were at the top of the food chain, essentially.
Yeah. Why wouldn't they?
Right. It was God given.
Let's take me and Comic-Con, right? I've been kicking Comic-Con's ass for 13 years.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I think I had a privilege to blah, blah? Like, I know I don't. But like,
why wouldn't you?
I understand the winner's fallacy.
You get high off your own supply. Yeah.
Like, shit just keeps going my way. I must be the chosen one.
Right.
You know, and the other guy can't seem to get his books off the ground, so he must be evil, right? Like, God hates him, right? Like, you know, and so, you know, when you have advantages that turn into, concrete,
outcomes, right?
Outcomes, then it's going to be how it's going to be, But
right.
I tend not to waste a lot of mental bandwidth on being mad at how far down the domino cascade we are. Like, with the Gatsby syndrome I talked about, like, you're not going to be able to go back and not sell Louisiana to white people. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like you can like be mad about stuff, but to like basically this goes with the TV show. You have to go back in time at some key moments and actually have the Black Plague not kill most white people because the people that were left were fucking horses. Like they were fucking the best of the best as far as genetically speaking.
Yeah.
They had lived through the toughest thing ever. And that group of Caucasians was like, fuck it. You know what I mean? You can trace it back. They went on to be like, fuck it. What the hell we got to be afraid of?
Right.
Let's run this shit. Right? And so it's not a narrative, I guess is what I'm getting at. And we look at time like a narrative where, the good guys should win and the bad guys. But, everybody knows this is a misnomer.
It's messy.
And it's cliche, but everybody is somebody else's bad guy.
Right.
Like, I relish being somebody's villain. I'm not going to lie. Like, you know what?
Right.
I'm pissing somebody off by succeeding in the way I do and how I do. And
which is why it's good to be talking to you about a show like Loki, where he's definitely the hero of his own narrative, even if his whole life has been to cause pain and suffering and death.
That's rough. That's so rough.
To help other people be the best versions of themselves.
That's
rough. Like, that's a heavy cudgel to swing at someone.
And they did it. They were just like, fuck it, man. You are a fuck up, but you're going to make other people.
But you make other people be great.
You're going to make other people not be shit.
So thank you for being you. But I think I could use you for another purpose.
That's something I would say, actually. I'm with Owen Wilson on this one, where I'd be like, hey, man, look. You're a natural born fuck up, all right? But
yeah, I would never say that, even if I had an internal idea that this is what this person is. Like, wait, no, this person's.
I mean, I wouldn't say it. I wouldn't say it as much as I would think it. Okay, I'm going to clean that up a little bit.
Right.
I wouldn't say it as much as I would. I definitely would think it. Like, you know what? Because such and such, did this and this. I'm going to try all the more to succeed.
Right.
To make them hate me even more or whatever is what I'm saying. So
yes. So gentlemen, I'm looking forward to Loki. I'm not quite sure if this will be a weekly thing where we discuss the show, but I'm definitely excited about the first episode.
I'm looking forward to it. I like I said, I get offended when people pretend like Disney isn't LeBron James right now storytelling. Not the Star Wars.
No, I'm not saying that. They definitely are. They definitely are.
Fighty,
yeah.
Right. Like,
they're definitely on a dynasty right now, which is its own.
Yeah, they are kicking ass.
Yeah.
And I think.
But they're doing it in a very Disney-fied, safe way.
I like the noise. They're not really that safe, though.
They're not.
I hate that myth. Black Panther dealt with fucking Pan-Africanism. I wouldn't have dealt with that. American blacks versus African blacks? No, thank you. Way. Let's just have a big beam in the sky that we all got to stop. And let's not deal with I
mean, it did deal with black on black crime too. So there's that.
Yeah, so I don't buy the whole Disney safe thing. Because look, what did DC deal with fucking Victor Stone? He was a football kid that had a dad that did a thing.
Yeah,
he was
once again,
so
you're comparing in genre. I'm sort of thinking in terms of like other films. They're not exactly stretching boundaries per se. They know their lane. That's all I'm saying. They know their lane.
I guess I need to know what you mean by stretching boundaries.
So, like, I mean, there are other films, they're not doing independent films where they're like, oh, this are going to be some really tough choices that characters have to make.
I feel like you got this myth and you just won't let it go because what the fuck was WandaVision? If it's not stretching boundaries, like
stretching, yeah, but not like.
But you hadn't seen that was just like that. Wait a minute, I hadn't actually seen a show quite like this before.
Okay,
like they're taking risks.
I saw Legion, and Legion was insane.
Legion was insane, but Legion had nothing to lose. It wasn't a big multi-billion-dollar.
That's
company.
what I'm saying, though. They're not taking wide swings. They're taking swings.
But
they're not taking. We might drive straight into a wall. That's what I'm saying. They're not willing to go full crazy.
Multiverse of Madness may prove you wrong. We'll see.
Maybe we'll see. But I'm not saying they're doing anything wrong. I'm just saying they're also playing it safe.
They're not playing it safe.
We disagree. It's okay.
Now, if you want to say they're playing it smart, yeah, I'll give you that.
I think they're safe and smart. It's smart. It sells tickets to theme parks. Safe
and mediocre.
I want to go to Avengers. No, I'm not saying mediocre. There are people who do think it's mediocre.
Exactly.
I'm not that.
I'm not that.
I'm not arguing in that direction at all.
There's this
Jim McLean has his popcorn.
Disney's for babies, and it's like
I'm not saying that. I'm not making those.
The
arguments.
MCU has the highest body count of all from their heroes.
Yeah.
Than anybody. Like people bitching about Batman killing. Black Widow and Captain America wiped out a whole boat full of people.
Right.
I it's agree. Just that one movie.
Some of them they arrested, but others they smooth over the side.
Casually, and I was cheering them on. I was like, kill those fucking.
Had the choice to disable them, let me just knock this guy overboard. Well,
right. Break his spine, knock him into the water. He'll be fine.
Why not?
Knife through that guy's hand and then kick him unconscious.
He shouldn't have did what he did.
Right. You know? I don't know this guy personally. Whatever.
You know, it's the.
He was just trying to feed his family.
It's the John Walker syndrome all over again.
To feed his children. Yeah.
Like you just don't be hanging out with terrorists. You won't get your full self killed.
Wrong place, wrong time.
And look, I'm being facetious, but I still like to call people out on the fact that Baron Zemo killed 6 of the Flag Smashers and nobody gave a shit.
Right. And anyone else who was driving the van. So there you go.
So it was like, wah, 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 wah.
Oh, well.
I cared because police brutality. It's like, yeah, I care about that too. But you, my friend, were emotionally manipulated. They got you. They framed it in a way where you had to make that obvious right decision to think that was wrong. But then the sleight of hand killing, you're like, well, yeah, they deserve to die because they're
moral superiority.
They're kind of bad people. You know what I mean? And I felt like
hold that framing.
That's got nothing to do with white or black, but that's like American privilege. You get to fucking judge everything. Both angles. If you don't kill them, you're weak on crime. If you do kill them, all guy, you're and we get to be right in both opinions. In some
ways, yes,
We're kind of American.
No, I don't know about we get to be right, but we definitely get to be righteous. We definitely get.
I think I'll definitely take that correction. I think that's what I'm going for. We're never wrong. Like, hey, I still feel right, and it's my opinion.
Yeah, I recently had to warn someone against righteousness. It's like, man, righteousness is intoxicating. Like,
my God.
Don't sip from that cup, man. You will not come back.
That shit is crack cocaine.
Right?
Yeah.
So you got to watch.
There's actually something cathartic, too, about saying, I don't know. You know, I got into a debate with a Christian. I'm not going to get into what the debate was about, but he was like, well, how did life start? And I was like, where did we all come? I was like, guess what? I don't know. Well, guess what? You don't know either. Like you don't just because I don't know doesn't mean that makes everything you think you know valid. You know what I mean? But you could actually get out of a lot of broken relationships and friendships as far as debating by going, hey, guess what? I don't know, man. I don't know. And then because once you say that, they actually don't have an answer for that because they want you to put out what you think you know. So they can debate your point like tennis.
Right.
But if you just hold the ball like, no, I don't know, man.
Yeah, I got nothing.
I'm just going to hold it right here. Like, I don't know.
Because they need an ideology to argue against.
They really do.
Don't give them the benefit of that. Then what's the argument really about?
And that's what that righteousness, Hallism, that righteous Hallism is that because it gives you, like you do your homework and you study and you listen to whatever outlet tells you what you need to hear. Right. So just so you can get these same talking points, like, oh, okay, I hope he says this. Right. I hope he brings up gentrification. I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it. And it's like, hey, I kind of like gentrification. Makes my neighborhoods look nicer. But I'm joking, but you know what I mean? Like, that's how I fuck people up like that want you to cut their worldview. But
So guys, we're at time. And we're gonna get out clean on this one. We're not gonna let Terry ramble us into a 2-hour show.
Man, I'm gonna eat all that. I'm gonna eat all that. It's like
I think that's worth the price of admission all by itself.
You just punch me in the face real quick as you walk out the door. I'm left with pain, suffering, questioning my sanity. Like, am I the bad guy here? Yeah. I'll get you next time.
I'm gonna hit you at you're now moving at 0.02% speed. Like all that pain is happening in real time.
Oh man, I'm gonna need some therapy.
It was 1/6.
Yeah, 1/6.
1/16th. 1/16th.
1/16th.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is
That
a
was
great
cool,
way to
by the
fight
way.
a person, you know.
Well,
I was thinking that in terms of like, man, they probably had to like subdue a time variant of Thanos, and being able to move him at 1/16th speed is probably one of the only
Oh, I
ones.
did like the little Easter egg before we go of him going like, "Oh, you're a little pussycat. Like you're like nothing compared to
The one
shit
I'm
we
chasing.
gotta,
Yeah.
Like,
Because you have to assume some of those big baddies come through the time gates too. They become variants because, you know, when you get your hands on an Infinity Stone, you go, well, let me see what I can do with this. Oh no, I just broke the timeline. So thank you guys so much for joining me. It's been a great conversation as always on Hall, Hudd Mclain as we discuss the Loki television show available on Disney Plus. I don't get any money for saying that, but you know, if anybody's wondering how you get to watch it, you gotta pay Walt Disney Corporation for the time. So thanks again. I hope we can speak again soon. And as always, I say good day.
The Hallspace Podcast is brought to you by Hall Productions, LLC. Show notes and credits can be found at our webpage, thehallspacepodcast.wordpress.com. Any questions, comments, or concerns can be sent to us at thehallspacepodcast@gmail.com. The show is written by Daggerpin Davis. Music is curated by DJ Cabal. The show is produced by Chuck Jones and recorded at Slash and Trash Studios. If you like what you hear and you want to hear more, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And I hope you all have a good week. House Hall. We rise brilliantly.